independence. As the men of America were busy fighting the British over the independence of America. Fighting the British. So this must be talking about the Revolutionary War. Women of America were busy too. They wanted to support the American cause in any way they could. The women did many things that proved to be very helpful. You know, like women do. Many women cared for the wounded soldiers during battle. They also worked in the army camps washing and cooking. They even made gunpowder and would travel to the battlefield to bring water and food to the men. They risked their lives to make the life of soldiers better. Some women even dressed up to look like men and fought in the war. A large group of women also served as messengers and spies. Other women helped support the war but never left their homes. They continued to do all their normal jobs, as well as work that their husbands and sons would normally do at home. They worked hard to keep the family farms in business. The women felt strongly about their roles during the Revolutionary War. When the story of the Revolutionary War is told, women should always be included in the discussion. Agreed. Okay, so the questions below are, based on the reading passage, what interests did women have in the war? Okay. They wanted America to expand and grow. That's not what it says. They were offered a good deal from the army. Disagree. They were seeking equal rights for women. Not quite yet. They wanted America to gain independence from England. Absolutely. They had the same interests as every American. Which of the following sentences is not something women did to help the war? Collected money to send to the troops. I didn't read that. They cared for the wounded soldiers. Yes. They kept the family businesses running. Yes. They were spies and messengers. Yes. So this is the one. They did not collect money to send to the troops. I don't know that they could spend it. What is the meaning of the word proved as used in the first paragraph? The women did many things that proved to be very helpful. Organized? No. Demonstrated? Yes. Right? They showed that it was really useful. What's the main idea of paragraph 3? Well, paragraph 3 is all about women who took on their husbands' and sons' roles and kept family farms going. Women helped bring water and food to the soldiers. That is not the main idea. Women didn't have to leave home to help fight the war. That might be it. The war was not a success without the women. I would say that equally men and women were probably both important. Women needed to be organized to make a difference? No. So it has to be this one, that women didn't have to leave home to fight the war. Okay, today we're going to focus on just writing your rough draft. So you should have a paper in your packet for your rough draft. If you don't have it, you can just put it on a piece of paper like I am doing right now. My stuff is at school and I'm at home, so I'm just going to write my rough draft on a piece of paper. Now the key to a rough draft is to skip every other line. And make sure you're in order. Right? You should go intro, your meat, which is 3 to 6 sentences, and then your conclusion. There is no reason for you not to have at least 5 sentences in your rough draft. So this is best trip ever. And here we go. Indent. doesn't have to be perfect. I don't actually have to think about it anymore as long as I've indented. I've got punctuation after every sentence, right? Here's 1 sentence, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Perfect. So I've got at least 5. A couple of my explanations are longer, so I have 2 sentences for them, and it makes sense. So as long as you have your rough draft ready, tomorrow when we revise, edit, and create a final draft, you'll be good to go. All right, let's take a look at page 16, language. This one is wild foods, multiple choice. We're still talking about subject and object pronouns. Remember that subject is who or what. This is the subject, and the object is what's happening. Right, what is being done? So subjects often come at the early part of the sentence, objects often come at the end of the sentences. That's how I like to keep them organized in my mind. So, which pronoun best completes sentence 2? Well, let's read sentence 1. My mother is a nature enthusiast. Blank and my father know where to find foods in the wild. So we're talking about my mother again. So she and my father know where to find foods in the wild. This is a subject pronoun because it's at the beginning, it's in the subject. Blank and Uncle Dick locate and use different wild plants for food. So we're talking about my mother and father, so it should be they or them. They is the subject pronoun. So they and my Uncle Dick use different wild plants for food. Which sentence best describes the underlined word in sentence 4? We've made entire meals out of wild plants. We is a subject pronoun. How do I know? Because it's in the subject. Which pair describes the 2 underlined words in sentence 6? Okay, well, let's get there. In the fall, my grandfather will harvest the cattails. Mom and I grind the roots to make flour for him. So I is a subject pronoun because it's with mom and I before the verb, so it's in the subject. Him is an object pronoun because it refers to grandfather and is in the predicate. So subject, pronoun, object, pronoun. And which is the correct pronoun type of pronoun for sentence 8? Well, let's get there. She and my father hunt for mushrooms in the woods. Wild foods are a lot of work, but it's fun to hunt for. So this is referring to wild foods, right? It's to hunt for. Them would be the object pronoun because it is in the predicate. So it is them and an object pronoun. Okay, let's take a look at page 26, which was your homework on Friday, drawing conclusions. Remember that conclusions are decisions you make after thinking about the details of what you read and using your prior knowledge to help you draw or make these conclusions. So sometimes you have to use what you already know. Now this is important. When you draw a conclusion, make sure it makes sense and is supported by what you've read. You can't just jump to a conclusion. You can't just create your own truth. You have to use the details in the text and truthful things that you know. All right, let's read the passage. Several factors led to the formation of cities. So we're talking about the formation of cities, and we're looking at the factors. First, small agricultural groups grew larger when farmers and hunters were able to provide a steady supply of food for more people. So we're getting larger farms. Also, settlers started keeping herds of animals for food and other purposes. Okay, because of these developments, there was enough food for everyone, so settlers had time to learn new skills. Oh, that's cool. They started making better tools and finding new uses for them. Better tools led to improvements in living conditions. Workers built structures to protect the community and to store food. They traded with other groups for items they needed. As more people lived together, members of the community started having different responsibilities and social relationships changed. Eventually, these communities developed a system to govern themselves. They also created a written language. Oh, wow. Okay, so we're talking like historic times. Like, why did anyone ever settle in a city? Not just like our pioneers. Okay. What I know about cities, right? I know about cities is that when people live closer together, they are closer to the things they need, right? Some more access. Like if you live in a city, there's more places you can go to get things, more access to goods and services. So my conclusion is that living in a city made life easier for everyone, or living in the city made life easier for most people. So I think about the backcountry folks that we've been talking about in social studies and how they had to do everything for themselves and they had to live really simply and primitively and like oftentimes didn't have great housing. And think about how could that be easier? Well, if they didn't have to provide everything for themselves and their house was warmer and nicer, and they had maybe some skills for, creating something, then they would probably be able to live more luxurious or easier lives. Now, there are always people that want to live out in the backcountry and do for themselves, which is why I said for most people. If you drew a different conclusion, as long as your details back you up, that's an okay conclusion. There are plenty of conclusions that you can make from this information, and lots of people have made conclusions about city living and city life based on what they've seen in the past. So as long as you've got details to support you, you're good to go. Okay guys, since we're not together to answer the questions, what I'm going to do is a big think aloud. So I'm going to go through this as though I was reading and answering these questions on my own. It's going to feel a little bit weird because you're going to essentially get like a look inside my scary brain. But I want you to know how I think when I do these questions. I'm going to tilt this so I can write comfortably, and I want you to see my small notes on the side because I have spent lots of years reading and reading for test taking. Of course he's miserable, moaned Wesley's mother. He sticks out. Like a nose, snapped his father. Listening through the heating vent, Wesley knew they were right. He was an outcast from the civilization around him. So it seems like everybody in Wesley's family understands that Wesley's a little bit different. He alone in his town disliked pizza and soda, alarming his mother and the school nurse. He found professional football stupid. He refused to shave half his head, the hairstyle worn by all the other boys, despite his father's bribe of $5. So, right, he's different, but he knows what he likes. But it seems like he is alone, right? He's miserable. Like Wesley doesn't have anybody else. Doesn't really seem like his father understands him either. Passing his neighborhood's two styles of housing, garage on the left and garage on the right, Wesley alone, dreamed of more exciting forms of shelter. He had no friends, but plenty of tormentors. This is a really serious word, torment. Sounds terrible. Fleeing them was the only sport he was good at, so it seems like he really gets bullied. Each afternoon, his mother asked him what he'd learned in school that day. That seeds are carried great distances by the wind, he answered on Wednesday. That each civilization has a staple food crop, he answered on Thursday. That school is over and I should find a good summer project, he answered on Friday. So we talked about this, but it seems like he's interested in science, maybe like food or crops. As always, his father mumbled, "I'm sure you'll use that knowledge often." Suddenly, Wesley's thoughts shot sparks. Wesley's thoughts shot sparks. This is like that aha or eureka moment. His eyes blazed. His father was right. He could actually use what he'd learned this week for a summer project that would top all others. He would grow his own staple crop and found his own civilization. Right? Okay. He's passionate about this. He's going to create his own civilization where he fits in. I forgot he. The next morning, right away, he turned over a plot of ground in his yard. That night, the wind blew in from the west. It raced through the trees and set the curtains snapping. Wesley lay awake listening. His land was being planted. Right? He's using what he learned in school. And letting the land get planted by seeds carried in the wind. It says 5 days later, his first seedlings appeared. You'll have almighty bedlam on your hands. Almighty bedlam just means chaos. It's like an old person way of saying that. If you don't get those weeds out, warned his neighbor. Actually, that's my crop. In this type of garden, there are no weeds. Think about that. He's not making any differences between the weeds and the plants. He's not singling anyone out. He's including everyone. Why do you think he's doing that? Probably because he knows what it's like to be pulled out or feel different. Following ancient tradition, Wesley's fellow gardeners grew tomatoes, beans, Brussels sprouts, and nothing else. Wesley found it thrilling to open his land to chance, to invite the new and unknown. The plants shot up past his knees, then his waist. They seemed to be all the same sort. Wesley couldn't find them in any plant book. This is where it gets a little fantastic. This is a little fantasy. Are those tomatoes, beans, or Brussels sprouts? Asked Wesley's neighbor. None of the above, replied Wesley. Fruit appeared. Yellow at first, then blushing to magenta. This is a hot pink. Wesley picked one and sliced through the rind to the juicy purple center. He took a bite and found the taste an entrancing blend of peach, strawberry, pumpkin pie, and flavors he had no name for. Ignoring the shelf of cereals in the kitchen, Wesley took to breakfasting on the fruit. He dried half a rind to serve as a cup, built his own squeezing device, and drank the fruit juice throughout the day. So this is now his staple crop. Right? He's using it for everything. Pulling up a plant, he found large tubers on the roots. These are like potatoes. These he boiled, fried, or roasted on the family barbecue, seasoning them with the plant's highly aromatic leaves. It was hot work tending his crop. To keep off the sun, Wesley wove himself a hat from strips of the plant's woody bark. His success with the hat inspired him to devise a spinning wheel and loom on which he wove a loose-fitting robe from the stalk's soft inner fibers. Unlike jeans, which he found scratchy and heavy, the robe was comfortable, reflected the sun, and offered myriad opportunities for pockets. Myriad means like many or lots of. His domain, home to many such innovations, he named Westlandia. So look at all of the things that Wesley does with his crop. These are the uses he finds for the plants that he's growing. He's using every single piece. He's using the leaves, he's using the roots, he's using the fruits, he's using the soft inner fibers. He's taking everything that he can to create his culture or his society based on these fruits or these plants. So let's take a look at the questions and see if we can't find some answers. What conclusion can you draw about Wesley based on the passage? He's careful and traditional gardener. No, he's not traditional at all. He says he's not doing it. He dislikes his neighbor very much. Not so much. He seems to just ignore her. Wesley's a bad student who gets bad grades. We don't hear that at all. Wesley is very focused on his garden. Absolutely. His garden is his whole civilization, right? This is his whole culture. What detail from the passage supports this conclusion? He found professional football stupid. Nope. Of course he's miserable, moaned Wesley's mother. Nope. None of the above, replied Wesley. Not quite. He could grow his own staple food crop. Absolutely. Right? This is his goal. This is the goal of the whole thing. Which word describes Wesley at the beginning of the story? Uncomfortable, worried, friendly, or likable? He's not worried. They don't like him. He doesn't seem overly friendly. So uncomfortable, right? He doesn't fit in. He doesn't fit. When something doesn't fit, it's not comfortable. Which question from the passage, or which quotation from the passage? Right? He was an outcast. Right? Everything else isn't helpful. He was an outcast, right? He doesn't fit in. How does Wesley respond to the challenge of his summer project? Right? He's not impatient. He takes his time. He's determined and enthusiastic. Absolutely. Traditional. Not traditional at all. Cautious and fearful? Not at all. He embraces it completely. So this must be the answer. He's determined, right? He wants to make it work, and he's enthusiastic. He does it every day. He's excited about it. Which does not support a summer project that would top all others. That is definitely enthusiastic, so it can't be that one. Wesley found it thrilling to open his land to chance. Still enthusiastic. Of course he's miserable. He sticks out. That doesn't fit. His success inspired him to devise a spinning wheel. It has to be this one. He sticks out. Right? In his land, he actually fits in perfectly because it's his own civilization. Okay. Ooh, vocabulary is my favorite. Based on the context clues of the sentence, these he boiled, fried, or roasted on the family barbecue, seasoning them with the plant's highly aromatic leaves. What does seasoning mean? Ooh, it means to make it tasty. It's like when you season up your French fries with a whole bunch of delicious salt and pepper. Making flavorful, yes. What word from the sentence helped you answer part A? Roasted, aromatic, barbecue, or plants? Well, I'm going to go with aromatic because it's the only one that makes any sense. But if you don't know what aromatic means, it means like it has a really strong smell. So if you think about seasonings, like think about garlic, how strong it is, or think about pepper when you sniff it in and it makes you sneeze, right? That's that aromatic quality. Even like cinnamon, where you smell it and you know what it is right away. So I'm going to pick aromatic, but I think that's kind of a jerk move. I feel like they could have switched these around and said, what does aromatic mean based on the word seasoning? But that's just my opinion. And the meaning of the homograph, plot, used in the sentence, the next morning he turned over a plot of ground in his yard. So a plot, right? homograph has a lot of meanings, right? Plot can mean plotting points on a graph, the storyline in a book. I could be plotting, you know, like an evil villain, or a patch of land. So we know that it's not these things. We know he's working on his land. So it's going to be a patch of land. But don't forget that words do have multiple meanings, and if you get stuck, start to look at context clues again. Like the plot of the ground in his yard doesn't mean marking points on a graph. Which detail is the best clue to the meaning of the homograph? Right? He's planting a garden. He like needs the space in his yard. If he was plotting to get revenge on his, you know, tormentors, that would be a whole different story. Oh, I already talked about this one. The idiom shot sparks and send suddenly his thoughts shot sparks, right? Shot sparks. Think of it. Think of cartoons, right? When somebody comes up with an idea and it's like fireworks coming out of their head, or like, you know, a big exclamation point, or a light bulb turns on. So we know that it can't become cloudy, right? It felt like he had a fever, like maybe, but I think his thoughts got very active, kind of like fireworks, like jumping all over the place. Like think of something sparking. They're just shooting out. Right? The meaning of the idiom, I think, is suddenly. Everything else doesn't make sense here. Plenty of tormentors, his father mumbling, the wind blew in from the west. It has to be that aha moment, like we're talking about, that eureka, that like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner sort of plot. Tomorrow is still your test, so you want to make sure that your races response is ready to go and that it's perfect, so that when you walk into the classroom tomorrow, you don't have to worry about the writing portion of the test. You can just literally copy it, you know, changing the punctuation and capitalization and making it look perfect, so that you can get 5 out of 5. So today's question is look back and write. Look at the picture on pages 36 and 37. Then read the story's final sentence. Explain how the words make a surprise ending to Westlandia. Provide evidence to support your answer. Okay, so the question is asking why is the final sentence a surprise ending, or why is this a surprise ending? So let's take a look at the final sentence on that page. It says, he had no shortage of friends. So if we're looking at restating the question says, explain how the words make a surprise ending to Westlandia. So if I want to restate that, I can either use it straight from the text, which I think I might, or I can just say, you know, in the story I think the story Westlandia ends with the sentence, comma quotations, right? He had no shortage of friends. Period, quotation. Right, this is a surprise ending because and this is where you are going to answer the question, okay? This is the surprise because, so fill in here, this is where you're going to start writing, okay? Now you might talk about, right, you might talk about the picture itself, right? Wesley's been alone mostly in his civilization, right? Wesley built this alone. Right? Or you might say, you know, the story really focused on how much he disliked his schoolmates, right? You can talk about his tormentors, or how he doesn't fit in. You can also talk about the pictures. You know, the picture on page 35 and 36, or the 36 and 37, really shows him all by himself. Nobody else is there. There's a little kitty. There's a lizard. So you can talk about the pictures. Right? The pictures show whatever. There is so much evidence. Almost the entire story is talking about Wesley's experience. Right? So if you're talking about him building it alone, you're going to talk about, you know, anything about himself, how he did it. If you're talking about his tormentors, you're going to give examples of, you know, what they did to him, or how his only exercise or only thing that he was good at was fleeing them, running away from them, what he refers to them as. You need to have some good evidence, and then explain what that means and why is it a surprise? Why is this, right? Why is this different from the last line? And then sum it up, right? For these reasons, right? Wesley going back to school with friends is a surprise ending, right? Now, I can't help you much more than that without giving you where to find your evidence and like writing it for you. So you should be good at this by now. Find that evidence, figure out why him having friends is a surprise based on the whole story, right? Think about even just what we just read in the reading for, you know, reading for test taking. He doesn't have anyone else. He really gets bullied. Like, he's using it for everything. He's including everything. Although maybe this is a hint towards why he accepts others. We don't know. So, do your best. Come prepared. And let's do really well on this writing section. And please, just like, let's go to school tomorrow. Okay, bye.